What if no one ever dies or gets old? If I asked, should we put money into the science of aging so that people can live longer, healthier lives? If I asked, should we spend money to fight cancer, Alzheimer's, or heart disease? Some people might say yes and others might say no. Almost everyone would say yes, but all three of those are linked to aging and fighting in so many other diseases. Every sign of getting older is like playing. One thing doesn't get you in hit. Something else will. So, it makes perfect sense. At least, it seems to me that we shouldn't try to change the biology behind aging. In 1910, people can expect to live longer. People in the US were only expected to live for 40 to 50 years just over 100 years ago. With an average lifespan of almost 80 years, we've almost doubled that number. And futurist Jamie Metzul says that we are working on technology to make that last even longer. There is a lot of really interesting work being done on sequencing, genome sequencing, people who live to be 100 or more to see if there are genetic differences between them and everyone else, and genes tell cells to make proteins. So, how do their genes tell their cells what to do? And can we make the same things happen for, everyone else? Could we stop older people from dying if we could do that for the whole population? Would there be too many people on Earth? Before we talk about what would happen if we lived forever, let's look at how we would do it. In just over 100 years, we've greatly increased the average human life expectancy by improving sanitation and workplace safety. And most importantly, healthcare. We've made treatments for life-threatening injuries and gotten rid of some of the world's deadliest diseases. But if we want to live longer, we'll have to deal with the biggest threat to our bodies: aging. But first we need to understand what aging is. There has been a lot of amazing work and great progress in just understanding the basic mechanisms of aging. There is even a debate going on about whether aging is one big thing or a bunch of different parts and systems in the human body that age at different rates. This is important because you don't want to have some cells that live forever and others that die quickly. There is some really exciting science that is trying to figure out how we can change the way our bodies and cells work from growth mode to repair mode. How do we make ourselves something like a screensaver? Well, it's already started, and a tool called CRISPR is to thank for that. Clustered Regularly Interspaced Short Palindromic Repeats is what CRISPR stands for. I didn't know about it. Yeah, neither do I, so let's ask Jamie Metzul, our resident expert, to explain it. The genetic code is the source code of life, and it has the ability to cut and paste like Microsoft Word. You can cut it to stop a gene from working. You can add genetic material. And that's how we can change the genetic code. Even so, genetic code is very hard to understand. So, people shouldn't think that we can just change everything. Genetic modification is just starting to change the world, but it's moving very quickly. So, if we can start taking out the genes that cause us the most trouble, one day we might be able to live in a world where no one ever dies of old age. That sounds great, doesn't it? Well, don't get too excited, because it might not be that easy in the real world. Let's look at the pros and cons and then see if you still think it's a good idea. The first pro should be pretty clear. We wouldn't lose as many friends and family members. Everyone would be able to live with their children and grandchildren. Families would have a lot of help raising their children because parents could get help from many different grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, etc. People might care more about the future if we all lived forever. This means that older people would care more about things like climate change because they would be around to see its effects. But as Jamie said, getting older is a complicated mix of things, and we won't be able to get rid of all the bad things at once. Even if we could get rid of some of the most dangerous parts of getting older, our bones, muscles, and minds might still get worse. Now we'll talk about the bad things. Sure, we'd all live longer. But what good is that if we suffer after a certain age? As people get older, they need more care. We might not need hospitals as much, but places to care for older people would fill up fast. We would eventually have so many children that we would need more food and other resources than we could get. At this point, there may be calls for birth control, which probably wouldn't go over well. Cities would get too crowded, and there may be more civil unrest. And to make things even worse, this is based on the idea that everyone on Earth will have access to this technology. But that's not how it would happen in real life. Most likely, this technology would be available first in countries that are more developed and have more money. So they would have a head start on making people with superpowers, which could be bad for international relations. The question for us is how to use this technology wisely and in a way that doesn't make people feel different from each other. How it really happened in the past. I mean, when Europe was ahead of the rest of the world in terms of technology, they used it to colonize and kill people all over the world. And that was the end of that. If we don't want that to happen, we just need to make sure that our most powerful technologies are used in line with the most important things we hold dear. So, whether you think this is a good idea or not, it seems clear that if we want to try to live forever, we need a plan for everything that comes with it. And maybe part of that plan should be for some of us to move to the red planet next door. But that will have to wait for another story. If you enjoyed watching and want to explore more like this with me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification to our channel before you go. Thank you so much for watching.